All right, so I have a recording on how to factor greatest common factors, which I think could be a good idea to first watch that, because we'll use some of that in these next examples where, let's suppose we've got 4 different terms. Again, this here is, we'll treat it as this polynomial that we're trying to factor. And this may be helpful down the road if ever you're solving equations. I'm not focusing on that right now, but because when we're solving polynomials, the zero product property is very helpful. And so in order to apply that, we do need things to be in factored form. But I'm only focusing on just how would we factor this. So we've got 4 terms. One of the strategies is to do factor by grouping. And so what that would look like is it would say, okay, well, we've got 4 terms, and what we're going to do is we're going to factor, or we're going to put together as a group these first 2 terms and these second 2 terms. And there are some examples where maybe you've got to rearrange these so that within this first group there is something that they both have in common, and there's something in the second group that they both have in common as well. That's why I say watch this last video about factoring just the GCF if you haven't done so. But in this one, notice that we've got a 3 and a 6 for our coefficients. Since they're both divisible by 3, what we'll do, again, just imagine ourselves dividing by 3 and dividing by 3. And so, again, we're not really thinking about this other term right now, this other group right now. It's just this here in the front. And so that 3 is going to come out here as part of the greatest common factor. So I'll leave a little bit of space right here. So the 3 is coming out. Again, think of it as undistributing. And then for the sake of getting our new numbers, 3 divided by 3 is 1. But we don't really need to write the 1. I'll leave it there for the moment. And then we've got to do 6 divided by 3, which is a positive 2. And so that is done as far as like the numbers. When it comes with the letters, again, think of this as a t times a t, or I'll leave it as t squared. And this other one here is t cubed, and that would be the same thing as t squared times a t. And so what they have in common is the t squared, and so these are going to get factored up here as a common t squared. And since that t squared is getting factored out, well, this one's gone, this one's gone, and that would now just leave you with this t. Okay. And so that first one is factored. Again, the 1 that I have written there, don't really need it. But let's leave that there for the moment. And over here, notice that we've got a 2t plus 4. And so because this is they're both divisible by 2, that's 2 times 2, then we can take out a 2 from both of them. And so the way we'll write this is, here is the group, but a 2 is coming out as a common factor or being undistributed, and that's going to leave us the t. And again, think of it as 4 divided by 2 to help you update your new number. And so this is what we want when we're factoring by grouping. We want to see that we have this common binomial. And now if we think of this as just a big group, then what we can do is treat this as the common binomial that is going to be pulled or factored out from each of the term. So we'll write this up here in the front, t plus 2. And now I know I wrote it as brackets just because we had parentheses inside of the brackets, but I'm going to write it just as this parenthesis. And now imagine this, since this t plus 1 has been undistributed or factored out, that's going to leave behind the 3t squared. And since this 2t came out to the front, it's going to leave behind a plus 2. And you could check yourself, like we're done. This original thing that we had to factor, the polynomial, is the same thing as t plus 2 times 3t squared plus 2. A way that you could check yourself with this is, FOIL, or with the box method. Again, I'll put it over here, the box method, that if you wanted to check yourself to make sure that you did factor this correctly, you could write the t plus the 2 and the 3t squared and the plus 2, and then just fill in your boxes. This would be 3t cubed, this would be 6t squared, this would be 2t, and then we would have a plus 4. But do you see that these four terms match the four terms that we had earlier? 3 cubed, 6t squared, 2t, and plus 4. So the factoring that we just did, this right here that I'll put around in a rectangle, is good. It's accurate factoring. Let's do one more factor by grouping, and then I've got some other things that I'll do in a different recording. But again, we're doing four terms, and let's see if factor by grouping helps us on this one. The thing that I would do with this, since there's a minus sign here, is go ahead and make your 12x cubed minus 9x squared. Let's make that our group 1, and then let's put a plus sign here just to not make it seem like we're multiplying these together. Like, imagine if I took that plus away, then it feels like we're trying to multiply these two things, but it's not. It's still just a set of terms separated by addition and subtraction. For now, we'll pretend the other group is not there. And looking at this, just the numbers, notice that 12 and 9 are both divisible by 3. And so let's imagine ourselves dividing by 3 and dividing by 3. And so this little group here is going to have a common factor over 3. Something about x, but I'm not going to think about the x right now. Just factor out the 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. So we're done with that. And just to keep things clean, I'm going to get rid of these. And now we've got to do the x's. They both got an x squared in common. And since this x squared is being pulled out, we're done with that part. But from here, we're taking out an x squared, which will leave us behind just 1x. And so we're done with the first group for the moment. We'll come back to it. Again, anytime that there is a negative here in the front, we want to factor that out. But think about what are the things that can both divide into 8 and 6. We can't use 1. We can't. 2 works. 2 works. 3 does not work. 4 does not work. So it looks like the only thing that we can do is 2. So we'll divide by 2, divide by 2. And when we divide that 2, we also do want to do a negative. Anytime that this leader here for this group is a negative, we want to do a negative. So this negative 2 is going to come out here as the common factor. But now just think of it as a division. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is 4. The x is going to stay since they don't have x in common. That's just going to stay as is. Negative 6, positive 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. And here's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that this matches this other binomial, and it does, which means factor by grouping is going to work out nicely here. Again, just think of this as a big group. Now, you don't have to use square brackets like I'm using if you want to just use really big parentheses and just think of this as a big giant group where the common binomial is what we're going to factor out. 4x minus 3, and then in the remaining parenthesis is what is left over that was not factored out. So in this one, it's the 3x squared. 3x squared. And then in this one, since this is gone, it's now moved over here. We have just left the plus negative 2, which would just be minus 2. And we'll stop right there. Again, if you wanted to check with the box method that your multiplication is good, 3x squared minus 2 and 4x minus 3, that would give us 12x cubed, which matches what we had originally, minus 8x minus 9x squared plus a 6. And so this looks good. This does match what we had earlier. So our factoring is good. All right, so I'll go ahead and stop this little recording here. This is just to introduce factor by grouping and also a little bit of review on factoring GCFs.